What is up, guys? The weekend is finally upon us, as is the Zero Driver Development Program. We are with Jordan, and a whole bunch of shit has changed, so I'm going to talk you through that in just a moment. Hope you guys have had an awesome week without me. The building noise seems to have passed, although the weather has taken no turn for the worst, so, mixed bag. Right, getting down to brass tacks. Obviously, the team that most people wanted us to run the driver development program with was Jordan. I think that was actually a pretty good choice, to be honest. I think it's probably one of the better choices we could have made. I mean, the obvious thing to do would be to go for a team with really well developed technical infrastructure and a huge budget, and with them basically use that might to just push the drivers forward artificially quickly. The other option, of course, would have been to go for a team much further down the grid, but then you don't really get to focus quite so much on the drivers. This is a nice middle balance. I think teams like Jordan, arguably Benetton, maybe Arrows after a few seasons, represent that sort of middle ground where there's work to do on the team, but there's also work to do on the drivers. Jordan, out of those teams, I think is the best place to sort of really push forward. You could probably put Sauber in that group, but Sauber are actually surprisingly hard to play in this game. They start out with good infrastructure at the factory, but beyond that, they've got a whole bunch of liabilities. Anyway, I'm waffling. Here we are at Jordan. Given that we are moving on to signing unproven drivers very cheap, we have saved many millions of euro dollars on basically bastards like Ralf Schumacher, who kept binning the car all the way through last season. We finished 5th in the Constructors last season. It wasn't a glory run by any stretch of the imagination. We had more DNFs than I have ever had in this game, primarily down to Ralph the Bastard. But it means between him and Damon Hill, we are saving somewhere in the region of about 15 to 17 million dollars per season on wages alone. And I chose to reinvest some of that cash. Primarily, we'll go over the drivers in a moment, primarily by picking up some important team leads. We've picked up Rory Byrne, only on a one-season deal, but I felt that if we were going to give these drivers the best start possible, we would need a designer capable of delivering a car that's going to be phenomenal balls. So that's what we've done. We've invested. I would never normally go for a 5-star designer, a team of this size, in the second season, but normally I wouldn't have the kind of cash we're going to have kicking around, because I would have drivers that cost significantly more. In construction, we have Harvey Postlethwaite, who I picked because the 5-star and 4-star construction chiefs had all agreed deals with other people before I could get them to agree to one with me. And Harv is, aside from being an absolute F1 legend, he was the cheapest 3-tier guy. So, why pay over the odds, really? He also tends to develop quite well. It sounds odd saying that about a 55-year-old man, but there you go. You can get into 4 or 5 stars quite easily if the team does well. Chief Mechanic, we have Carl Gaden, who I hope to retain, actually. We're paying over the odds for him. He's normally on around $500,000, and most teams can pick him up for a bit over that, so $550,000 up to about $600,000 you can usually get him for in the first season. We are paying $755,000 for him, but that is pocket change. Now we're not having to pay for the likes of Damon Hill. In commerce, again, it came down to the best person I could get for 5% or less. That is still very much my rule, so that's what we've been doing. I have also strengthened the department's staff as best as I could, so what you'll notice is less so in commerce because less people came up, but in design and construction and in the among the mechanics, we are almost done with the poor guys. I've cleared them out of the design and construction department entirely and focused on trading up to very good or expert staff. That does put the wage bill up, but again, not really a big problem. We were okay for cash almost all the way through the last season. What I did, which I've never done before, was sell off, for no reason at all, 40% of the team. We got rid of 40% of the team for about 6.2, 6.4 million, and I immediately invested that in a factory upgrade, just to get it out of the way, get the ball rolling there. We also have a CAD and CAM structure in place for this season. That's 5 stars all around. Let's take a look. The next upgrade will either be a testing rig or a supercomputer. We'll have to sort of figure that out as we go. Let's talk drivers. Now, a name that cropped up repeatedly was Juan Pablo Montoya. I did my best to get Montoya, I really did, but he agreed a deal with Minardi before I could snap him up. So our lineup for this season is Celso Moriera is our lead driver, although he's equal number 1. Then I was torn based on my own experience and your guys' feedback between John Fellows or Dario Loretti. In the end, I picked up both, and we can switch between them as we need to. The reason I was torn was partly because John Fellows, I feel we cheated him a little bit in the Arrows playthrough, because he worked hard and he deserved a shot at the race seat, and we never really gave him one. We never gave him much consideration. But he's one of the better developed drivers, actually. And the toss-up between him and Loretti really came down to, I felt it would be good to have at least one driver in the car who has some level of wet weather capability, which Dario Loretti does. He's a 2-star driver. But then I thought, let's try and give old Johnny Boy a bit of a try. Moriera to me was a no-brainer, simply because he's cheap, he's fairly young, and he's the best developed undeveloped driver out there. So as you can see, we've got some young guns, 23, 24 and 25 respectively. No race starts between them, and we're going to get into the driver development stage from round 2 onwards. What we're going to do in this episode is kind of combine the usual pre-season spiel with the first round in Australia. In Australia, we're not going to tailor things specifically to the drivers, because what we're going to do is get them to sort of push at the standard season opening level and try and find out, first of all, where our car is, and secondly, can the drivers handle the car in its current condition. So best case scenario is we have 2 reasonably placed finishes. I suspect the team will go backwards this year, having 2 rookies behind the wheel. That's pretty much guaranteed. Fortunately, we have a strong financial base with which to work. Our sponsorship budget has increased year on year by around 4.2 million, plus we've saved all that cash, of course. Let's take a look at the sponsors very, very quickly. We don't have a great amount of the car covered, only 85%. I tried to keep Benson and Hedges, or Buzzing Hornets as they are in this game, but no dice there. Red Bull was the only team sponsor that would talk to me, so I then decided that we had to make up, to have any chance of sort of maintaining a reasonable budget. We had to then start chasing work steals where we could get them. So we're signed with Red Bull. It's a 1-season deal for $22 million, so that is a pay cut, significant over what Buzzing Hornets was paying. So it then came down to what engine deal could we get that could sort of supplement the budget. It came down to a pretty closely fought race really between Peugeot and Ford. In the end, we went with Ford because the affinity between us and Ford seemed to be better, so progress was moving along quite quickly there. We got 10.6 million out of Ford. No, we didn't. That's bollocks. We got 8.6 million out of Ford. Peugeot were offering 10.6 million, so 2 million difference. But the Ford engine is better, and the deal just went through much, much quicker. We did, however, manage to pull off something I didn't expect, which is a works deal for 2 seasons with Shell, worth around 2.5 million a season, which immediately cuts out the difference between Ford and Peugeot, and does so over a 2-year basis. That's pretty good. We got very close to a works deal with Goodyear for tyres, but then they backed out at the last minute, and as a result we've got a partner deal there, but that's only 1 season, so we can build on that. Again, PIAA were very, very keen to deal with us, which is always great, so I snapped them up on a 1-season deal for about 2.4 million. PlayStation bring about 1.6 million into the team, and MasterCard also bringing about 1.6 million. So actually PIAA gave us a 2-season deal straight out of the gate, so going into next season, we already have 2 sponsors in place, PIAA and Shell. Not the most important areas to have 2-year deals, but every little helps. And now we've got a stronger commercial team, which will continue to boost. I'm sure things will mosey along quite nicely. Obviously, with great works power comes great works responsibility, and we do have some responsibilities. We are solely in charge of the engine development program for Ford and Shell. That sounds good, but it is a problem. Despite not being financially in trouble last season, our, as I always refer to it, economic capacity was a problem, and producing spare parts was a real pain in our balls. Maybe you felt it. And so running the testing program not only incurs extra cost, but it incurs extra wear, which we then have to offset with spare parts. I've done my best to give the construction team a boost, and now we have CAD and CAM facilities, particularly the CAM facility, should boost our ability to produce. So hopefully we can now sort of match our internal demand without having too many accidents to drive up that cost. Factory we've been over, sponsors we've been over, team we've been over, so let's do the pre-season shuffle, shall we? Let's see who is where this season. So starting out, Arrows. Arrows have Heinz-Harald Frentzen as their lead driver until 2002. His teammate will be Ricardo Rosset. That's a very, very strange pairing. Very strange pairing. However, I think Heinz-Harald Frentzen is one hell of a coup for them, to be honest. One hell of a coup. I'd expect that to pay off for them quite quickly. Andrea Montemini is their test driver. Over at Benetton, the new lead driver is Johnny Newhouse, supported by David Coulthard. That is a very, very, very strong setup, which I'm pleased to see Benetton take the jump on. I did expect actually McLaren to focus on retaining Coulthard, but they just didn't make the effort. The test driver for them is Ralf Schumacher, a bit of a step backwards for him, but frankly he spent more time in the wall than on the track last season, so, you know, swings and roundabouts. Over at Ferrari, another very strong lineup actually. Jean Alesi returns to the team and takes the number 1 driver role. That was an excellent signing for them. He's a veteran, obviously you're not going to get a long time out of him. It might be that he retires at the end of that deal at 2002, but he is a driver who delivers fairly consistently in this game. They've basically stolen both their drivers from Sauber, which, if you think about it, kind of makes sense. The game doesn't actually replicate Sauber's relationship with Ferrari, but for a long time, and up until quite recently, Sauber were obviously the preferred partner of Ferrari and was sort of their ground for developing drivers for a long time. Felipe Massa obviously being the more memorable, I suppose, of the drivers to go through that route. Although actually now I think about it, Kimi Raikkonen as well went that route, although he ended up going to McLaren before Ferrari were ready to accept him, and that he sort of took an extended route through the system there to get to Ferrari. Alexander Wurz is their test driver, which is a waste of a very talented young Austrian, but you know, we don't make all the calls. Obviously, Jordan, we have John Fellows and Celso Moreira as joint number 1s, with Dario Loretti as the test driver. We can switch between those guys if we need to. We can drop them at any point, and it's not going to really upset us too much. I've tied them into long-term deals just to keep the cost down, because chances are, you know, if we're going to develop them, it's going to take a few seasons. What's the point of having to negotiate a contract with them each season, potentially risking losing them to other teams? I just tied them down for 4 seasons, and we'll see how it goes. Over at McLaren, Eddie Irvine and Shinji Nakano are equal number 1s. It's very surprising to see a team like McLaren switch to a pay driver straight away. It's not unknown to happen, but it seems to me a bit early. Ricardo Zonta will be their test driver. I think Irvine will probably do quite well there. Nakano, it's kind of hard to see. Nakano, obviously, more so than Irvine, will rely upon the technical backing the car itself to be what delivers the results, and the fact that he's at the wheel is just coincidental, whereas Irvine arguably has far greater capacity really to deliver a finish that the car perhaps doesn't deserve. Ricardo Zonta, who was also on our radar. A lot of people wanted Zonta. I did try and sign him, but apparently continuing to test for McLaren was high on his priorities list, and he did not agree to join us. Over at Minardi, Olivier Panis and Mika Salo. Minardi seemed to have a lot of fondness for Mika Salo, but who doesn't? Who doesn't? I love a bit of Mika Salo. It's quite an experienced team there, both guys 32 years old. That's what I would call a Ferrari lineup. Ferrari are a team that never really go after the young drivers until they're no longer young drivers. I think it's... If Minardi had signed drivers of that caliber back in the day, I think it's fair to say they would probably have garnered quite a bit of attention from the press, really. I mean, that is a solid lineup. It's not stellar, although Panis did have that fantastic season. Well, 96-97 for him really were phenomenal seasons that showed he had a lot of potential, but he never really found himself in the right car again under the right conditions. Salo was someone who always found a drive because he was just good. He was just good. I think that's a steady pair of hands for Minardi in both respects. What I'd actually expect to see then is Minardi to at least be able to consistently push their car to its limit. That enables them to really focus their attention on getting the basics right, I suppose. Primarily technology. What you want to do is make sure the car is reliable. You don't have to chase outright performance as you would with less capable drivers, and instead you can focus on making sure the suspension stays on the car and just let Panis and Salo do the heavy lifting. So hopefully that's what comes to pass. Juan Pablo Montoya is their test driver. Over at Prost, Damon Hill has joined the team on a one-season deal as lead driver. Partnering him is Jan Magnussen, and Stefan Sarazan stays on at the team for test driving duties for another season. Hard one to read that. I mean, obviously Hill is a very, very strong driver. He's the second best driver in the wet in this game. And he actually delivered our best results last season. He got second position on the grid in qualifying 3 separate occasions when the weather was bad, and if I was playing this game normally I would probably have given some thought to retaining him as sort of an experienced hand. Something that I don't know, and I wouldn't be surprised if it was included in the simulation model, but I don't know for certain, will be this idea that drivers develop better when they have a more experienced teammate. I don't know if that's actually true. I wouldn't be surprised to hear it was, but I can't say one way or another if that's how it works. But Hill and Moriera actually would be a pretty good team for us. However, that's not what we're here for. Magnussen is just Magnussen and depressing. Over at Sauber, Peders takes the lead driver role at Sauber, which again, actually, he did go to Sauber at this stage in his career, I think. So, bonus points to Grand Prix World for sort of art imitating life, somewhat. Esteban Tuero will be supporting him, so it's double pay driver for Sauber, which is probably the best move they could have made, really, given how the team is in this game during the opening season. They do burn through cash very, very quickly because they've got no works deals and their sponsorship deals are nothing special. I don't expect any fireworks from them, really, but we know from experience that Tuero can develop quite well, and Diniz is ultimately a safe pair of hands that will 9 times out of 10 get the car home, as long as it's not an absolute dog. Marini is test driving for them. Stewart have retained Rubens Barrichello, although he's no longer the sole number 1 driver, sharing that position with Toru Takagi. So obviously Takagi there is basically subsidising part of Barrichello's wages. That's not necessarily a bad way to do things, really, and that's probably a smart call by Stewart. Laurent Redon is their test driver. And down at Tyrrell, Giancarlo Fisichella is the number 1 driver, supported by Emmanuel Collard. Collard is a ridiculous human being, we're not going to even discuss him. Fisichella I was surprised to see go to Tyrrell. I I was surprised to see Tyrrell stump up 2.5 million to get hold of him, but they've chosen to do that, and I don't know. Fisichella is a fantastic mid-level, later in the game, and upper-level driver, but he's not got a great deal of mechanical sympathy, and a team like Tyrrell in particular is one where the car is 9 times out of 10 during your first 3 or 4 seasons incredibly fragile and sensitive, not particularly well technologically developed. He's your typical red-blooded Italian driver, and I think he's probably going to grab the car by the scruff of the neck, and instead of drawing incredible lap times out of it, given where it's come from, he will more often than not break it, I think. So my conservative prediction actually is that we're going to see quite a lot of mechanical failures on Fisichella's Tyrrell in particular. Luca Badoa is their test driver. And finally, Williams have one of my favourite driver lineups this season. Mika Hakkinen and Jarno Trulli are equal number 1 drivers. That's great for Trulli's development, to be honest. Obviously, a lot to learn. There's only 6 years difference between them, but in sports, we know that's huge. Jörg Müller is their test driver. I'd expect Williams to do respectably well, depending on what technical package they manage to put together. The big news, though, is that Michael Schumacher was too expensive for anybody's taste, and he will be sitting out this season. Unlucky there, Michael. Let's take a look at what's going on with everybody's technical partners, shall we? So, team sponsors first of all. McLaren's key sponsor East switched over to Benetton for this season. Murano have stayed on with Ferrari, and Williams sponsor Winfield, or Winfields in real life, has switched to McLaren. Williams poached Playlife from Benetton. Blondes have been poached by Arrows, and Stewart took Buzzing Hornets from us. Red Bull, the final team sponsor, are sponsoring ourselves. Next season then, either we have to stick with Red Bull or we need to get our hands on the Playlife deal, which I think is a tad ambitious. Looking at the engines, Mercedes-Benz works power for Williams and McLaren. That's a pretty big coup for Williams actually, and gets them out of the clutches of Mechachrome. Ferrari have also switched to Mercedes power as a partner. Wow, a works Ferrari deal for Arrows and Sauber. That's great for both of those teams. We'll take a look in a moment at the respective performance of these units, but that's very encouraging for them. Peugeot have given Prost an extension on their works deal and accepted Stewart as a partner. Mugen Honda will be partnering Minardi. Over at Ford, Benetton and Tyrrell are partners, and we are their preferred works outfit. No one's gone for Mechachrome or Hart, and no manufacturers have entered the sport. Taking a look at the units themselves, we've done pretty well. It's got the same Ford problem as ever, which is the reliability. However, when it comes down to the remaining attributes, we're in pretty good shape really, and none of the units aside from the Mercedes are particularly stellar when it comes to power. So we're certainly not outclassed by most units to a huge extent, although the power deficit to the Mercedes unit is pretty massive. Peugeot might have been a better option for us looking at it. I think it's on paper a better engine and would have provided more sponsorship money, but I just didn't have the faith that we were going to secure the deal. It's not too big a problem though. We can develop our way out of trouble. I think Minardi made the right call with Mugen Honda, and Sauber and Arrows, that's a hell of a coup for them. I'd still, out of the Ferrari and Peugeot, prefer to have the Peugeot unit looking at the outright stats, but let's not poo-poo the Ferrari here. I think we're going to see a definite performance boost for Sauber, or at least I would hope so. And it's hard really not to see Arrows taking a step forward as well, to be quite frank. Over in Thailand, we have a partner deal. For some reason I thought we were playing as Arrows there, and I thought, why do I have a customer deal? Because I'm not Arrows. Bridgestone will be supplying Arrows as a customer to the brand. Benetton have the Works Bridgestone deal with Prost and Minardi as partners. Tyrrell is a further customer, and the final Bridgestone Works deal goes to Ferrari. Over at Goodyear, that's a bit of a switcheroo there actually, because McLaren was the Works partner from Bridgestone and Ferrari was the Works partner from Goodyear, and now we are the other way round, with McLaren taking the Works contract we wanted with Goodyear out of our clutches, and we are instead demoted to partner alongside Stewart. Sauber are a customer, and Williams signed a Goodyear Works deal very early in the season, so it really is McLaren that's to blame for us not getting lucky there. Taking a look at relative performance, the best wet tyre is pretty clearly with Bridgestone. Actually, looking at it, I think Goodyear have got the better intermediate tyre, but other than that, we're fairly evenly matched on the dry compounds, although I would give the edge to Bridgestone. Unfortunately, that's not something we can develop our way out of, because we just don't have control over the research and development program this season, but we do have a bit of cash from them and a promise of reasonably quick upgrades, so maybe they can keep us in the running. I mean, it is a tyre formula, so not having the superior tyre does come back and bite you in the arse more often than not. Over at Fuel Land, we have a works deal with Shell, as do Arrows. They've had a hell of an off-season, Arrows, to be honest, to put together all these deals. Mobil will be supplying Sauber as a partner, and McLaren as the works team. Texaco have partnered with Prost. Total have partnered with Minardi and Stewart, whereas Agip have partnered with Benetton. Tyrrell will be a customer for them, and Elf are a partner of Ferrari, and a customer supply goes to Williams. Taking a look at the fuels, we have smack bang in the middle, which is exactly where I want it to be, because we do have control over our research and development program when it comes to fuels and lubricants, and we can develop our way to something special, and neither attribute, neither power nor engine tolerance, is particularly low, so we don't have a marathon to run in one category. It's just a short sprint on both attributes, which everybody likes. We're not going to go over the cash sponsors because that just isn't necessary, so let's get down to business, as they say. Over in commerce, there's not many people really available, but that's okay because we've got Yves Lambert for another season following this one. What we want to do is make sure we expand the department, so we will do that now. Rory Byrne is our best bet, really. It's going to get expensive to retain him, I think. It might be a bit early as well. The good news is, though, that there's a lot less teams in the running to take him away from us. I'm going to offer him a 2.7 million deal. That's too low for him, but we are, I suspect, quite close to a deal, so it's good to have that option there. If needs be, we could fall back on Nick Worth. I guess he'll want a 2-season deal given his skill rating. 1.7 million isn't too shabby. I could probably make that deal work as well. I mean, it's a bit of a shame to go backwards, but it might be necessary. Let's see how we are budgetary wise following the first round. Maybe we are actually losing cash quite quickly. John Barnard is on the market from Ferrari, but we are not in that market ourselves, unfortunately. And Carl Gaydon is someone we want very much to keep on board, and I'm willing to pay to make that happen. Yeah, again, close to a deal. We can't afford to give him $250,000 pay rise every season, but for the first few, until we've built up a better reputation for ourselves, I think it's not too bad. Right, on the technical side, we are going to begin work straight away on next season's car, because why wouldn't we? I'm going to finish this project on the driver aid. The reason being that we've got some technology work to do. Big concerns here with the hydraulics. We just don't want to be having failures all over the shop. None of our technology is particularly impressive in any sense of the word, and so we have to work quite quickly to get that up and running. I'm going to put 25% of the guys on that project. We'll see how much they get done in one round, and if needs be, then I'll use that 15% we've just put back on the driver aid to try and basically support that process. Things get more complicated once we start applying upgrades to the 1999 car, which I do intend to get ideally 2 packages out. Not sure if that's really something we can make work, but we will try. Let's just order a whole bunch of spare parts or as many as we can, and we'll run some testing and we will go from there. Testing is going to be a bit more intensive than it was last season when I was off camera, because of course we have responsibility now to Ford and Shell to get things developed. I'm going to run a butt ton of testing because it's not super expensive. 350,000 isn't a great start, but I will take it. We're going to do quite a lot of engine testing work because I think that's important. Not going to worry so much about see, I'm thinking out loud now, and that's always a problem because I mess up my own sentences. We're not going to worry too much about the Forschung testing, was what I was going to say, because I just don't think it's necessary right now. I'm trying to make sure that we get the best performance we can out of the mechanics here, as well as the drivers. The problem is that because we're using totally inexperienced drivers, I'm not sure how that's going to affect their ability to do setup work on the car. I'm going to trust that the distance that we're doing here is enough. Forschung we're really not bothered about, so I'll just put 10% of Moriera's attention on that, and everybody else can ignore it. We're doing more fuel testing than engine testing, which is a problem for me, so we'll shift that around. Let's just hope that this works how we want it to. Kind of. The main thing is we've got that first test that results in nothing out of the way straight away for the car upgrade. We only get 2 points to spend on our next spec of engine, which I'm going to put both onto reliability, and 1 point to spend on fuel, so I'm going to put that onto power. Tyres we can't do anything with, so that's all good. Let us do repairs. We put a lot of wear on the car there with that test program. See, this is what I was talking about, right? That our ability to actually keep the cars in good working order is reduced by having to run a much greater length of testing. What also is the problem is that our technology is really, really poor, particularly on reliability, and that also means that a lap in our car results in more wear on our car than a better constructed car would show. It's just one of those little quirks that means you're not just at a single level disadvantage, but you're at a multi-level disadvantage, and that is a kick in the pants. I'm going to put 5% of our staff talking to Playlife, 5% talking to Red Bull, and we'll just see. We'll tickle a few trout and see what. I actually did the hand gesture there. You can't see that. I keep thinking I'm on webcam or some shit, but you can't actually see me pretending to tickle theoretical trout. But that was what was happening. We're going to talk to Peugeot and Ford, and you're going to think I'm crazy, but I'm going to also put some feelers out with Mechachrome because their unit is quite respectable, and as a one-season stopgap while running a works program takes too much out of the team, it wouldn't necessarily be a bad option. We'll talk to Mugen as well. Tyres, again, nothing to lose by just opening negotiations with both parties. We don't gain any progress here. And then cash sponsors, we can actually make a healthy start on straight away while we've got this extra people available. How many does it take to change a light bulb? I think if we can maintain level 2, that's not too bad actually in terms of hospitality. That gives us 42% of our staff free to speak to people right now. I'm going to go for Korean Air, I think. And we'll get a 5-star with Castrol. Why not? Castrol are a sponsor that tend to be... The AI seem to have a blind spot with them for some reason. We'll invite Red Bull along to the party and Playlife and Ford, and we'll see what comes out of it. Everything else looks good, the cars are repaired, everyone's happy. Let's put the driver aids we've got on the cars. That's a really great thing for us, by the way, that we managed to build an active suspension system and an automatic gearing system. I really didn't expect to be able to pull that off last season, but it came together in a way that I didn't expect, and that is the payoff. It totally screwed up my ability to keep the cars in good repair during the last few rounds of last season, and probably cost us a few points, but the gap to 4th was 20 points by that stage, and we weren't really going to make that up. We're going to run both drivers on the soft compound tyre initially, just so we've got a baseline for both of them. See how well they synergize with the car. Now, what we'll be doing next episode, is tailoring all these attributes that we've ignored in the Arrows playthrough, because I was focusing on how to keep the team financially solvent and develop it. What you see here are how aggressive or how easy drivers are on various elements of their driving. So how late they brake, how much they ride the curbs, how much they're prepared to go offline to gain a position. It's very, very, very deep part of the simulation that we've never gone over before, and that's why I felt that a driver development program would enable me to show this element of the game in to much higher standard. What we're going to do is leave this all as default for the first episode, so they're not easing off and they're not being any more aggressive than is, let's call it, their default level. They're not pushing super hard. We just want to find out where they are and where the car is as a unit, as a team, and from there we will extrapolate what we should do. With that in mind, I'm going to set the cars up identically. I'm going to focus on the performance attributes plus the weather, because I don't expect it's going to rain in Australia, although often it does, I know. Both cars will be on the soft compound tyre. Let's find out where we are. Okay, 28 degrees and dry with a very strong wind. That data is completely useless to us because we don't know how good the car is or how good the drivers are. We do have a reliability problem with the Ford unit, which we're already aware of. We know the car is not hugely reliable on a technological level either, so here's hoping that we can make something good happen. Good things go! Oh, hello phone. Stupid modern technology interrupting Grand Prix World. I don't know what world's coming to. It's mental. Okay, Fat Cheek John Fellows and Skeletor are both ready to rock. Interesting split there, actually. But let's do things properly. Eddie Irvine takes pole for McLaren Mercedes this time still, on a 1:30.476. Teammate Shinji Nakano lines up second on a 1:30.537. Very impressive from Nakano there to have his car so close on the heels to Irvine's. Heinz-Harald Frentzen, on his debut for Arrows, qualifies third on a 1:30.544. You're probably saying, hey Zero, you ran this whole big thing, hey look at me and how good I am, look how I've managed to do so well with Arrows, why didn't you get third position on the grid the second time out? It's because the AI don't play to the same rules that we do as players. So it is entirely possible, although it happens rarely, for Minardi to become a World Championship winning outfit in like 3 seasons, which a human player cannot do. It is not realistically possible to turn Minardi round that quickly. That's not to say the AI like flat cheats on everything, but what they're capable of doing is getting a better deal than we can get. So they may have got Frentzen for half the price he would have cost if I'd tried to sign him, which gives them the ability to sign him to shake up the driver market. Anyway, enough aside, they are still affected by the fact they've changed engine supplier, they've got a new designer, they've done all the steps that we would have to do. They just have a let's call it a force multiplier applied to them by nature of being AI, and it seems the Ferrari power unit, the new car, the tyres, they're all working together quite well with Frentzen, and that's a fucking good time, to be honest, out of an Arrows. He's also the top Bridgestone shod car. Davy Coulthard leads teammate Johnny Newhouse in the Benettons, 4th and 5th respectively. Mika Hakkinen lines up 6th for Williams. Ricardo Rosset shows how good the Arrows actually is by qualifying 7th. That is good, to be honest, given what we know about Ricardo Rosset. John Fellows, our very own, on his debut qualifies 8th for Jordan on a 1:39.06. He's ahead of Jean Alesi's Ferrari, Johnny Herbert's Ferrari, both those cars rounding out the top 10. Jarno Trulli on his debut for Williams takes 11th, and Celso Moreira's Jordan lines up 12th on a 1:31.357. Quite pleased, actually, with that qualifying. It's not too shabby. 29 degrees and light rain. This is good for us, actually, because this gives us a chance to see how the drivers perform in mixed conditions. We can't do anything spectacular with the strategy because both cars are running the soft compound, so we can't one-stop one of the drivers. But we do now get to see how they perform in light rain. I suspect badly because both of them are level 1 wet weather drivers, but what can we say? Let's see if the car can do the heavy lifting. Well, not bad. I'll be honest, I expected worse. I expected this to be a season where we didn't really break the top 10. Celso Moreira takes 8th there, 1 lap down, but I don't feel too bad given that he's a poor wet weather driver. John Fellows, what happened to him? Driver error, but he's a rookie. We've got to be able to write him a check to screw up because he will. Mika Hakkinen, out of almost nowhere, takes the win for Williams on a 1:38.17.930. Shinji Nakano takes 2nd for McLaren on his debut, beating teammate Eddie Irvine, which I don't think any of us predicted. Jean Alesi takes 4th for Ferrari, a bit of a recovery drive for him. Pedro Diniz takes points on his debut for Sauber to take 5th, and Heinz-Harald Frentzen manages to keep the Arrows in the points for 6th, although 1 lap down. Have to say, this is shaping up already, just by looking at how qualifying and race went, to be a very, very exciting season. Obviously, Hakkinen leads Drivers' Championship, and Williams and McLaren are joint number 1 in the Constructors. Let's take a quick look what's going on in Sponsor Town, and then we will call it an episode. So, Playlife are not willing to talk to us, but Red Bull are, and they're willing to give us 20.5 million a season for 3 goddamn seasons. I like the colour of that money. Over in Engine Town, we have offers on the table from everybody, which is good. Peugeot this season are not willing to give us a works deal, but they will give us a 2-season partner deal. Mugen Honda are offering a 1-season partner deal. Ford are prepared to extend our works relationship, again only for 1 season, but for 9.6 million, which is an increase of 1 million. And we can only get a customer deal from Mechachrome at a cost of 4.3 million, but by Christ could we negotiate that quickly. So if time was of the essence, which unfortunately it isn't, we could just snap up that deal. And Mechachrome is basically a rebadged Renault, so a respectable unit. Part of me would like the challenge of trying to win a Constructors' Championship at some point with Mugen Honda, just because I've never done it before. I've always chased the money. So I think we're best sticking with Ford right now. Let me know in the comments below if you agree or disagree, because we're not going to move on to the next round in this episode, so you've got time to give me your input. But I'm going to assume that we're going to be chasing the Ford deal, so I won't spend this success card right now. On tyres, we can get a works deal for 800,000 for one season with Goodyear, or 1.35 million from Bridgestone. That's a no-brainer, surely. Surely that, if nothing else, is a no-brainer. Fuels we don't have to worry about because that's all done and dusted, and we've got a one-season deal for 1.8 million from Castrol, and a 1.5 million two-season deal from Korean Air on the table. So the Korean Air deal obviously takes precedent for us because that adds up to 3 million before bonuses, and if we get ourselves some bonuses it could be significantly more than that. Not a bad start. Not great. I would have loved to have seen some points, but I didn't expect it coming into the episode, to be quite frank with you. You guys let me know in the comment section below, or send me an email or whatever, how you want to proceed at this point. This is Grand Prix World by committee. Let me know what you think. Do we take the Ford Works deal, for example? Tyres, do we switch to Bridgestone for that extra money, or do we try and see things out with Goodyear and see if we can't long-term build a relationship with them? What do you guys think about how we develop the car this season? Do we immediately focus on next season's car and do what we're doing right now and keep a high percentage of staff on developing next season's car? Or do we try and simultaneously develop driver aids technology and an upgrade package using the percentage of staff that would have otherwise been assigned to boost early season gains on next season's car? Anything else you see you want to comment on? Any other decisions you want a hand in, from factory upgrades to how we run the testing program? You guys slam it all down below, and more importantly than that, far more importantly than that, thank you very, very, very much for joining me. I hope you guys have the best weekend possible given your respective circumstances. I will talk to you very, very shortly. You guys take care. Bye bye.